Viewers, on the 12th of August 1985, a Boeing 747 of Japan Airlines was standing at Tokyo's Haneda Airport and was offloading passengers. Exactly after 1 hour, it had to take off again and go to Osaka. Thousands of people travel from Tokyo to Osaka every day. But today was a little extra busy. Because people were going to their hometowns for the Japanese holiday season open. After cleaning the plane at Haneda Airport, 509 passengers and 15 crew members boarded Japan Air 123. This was a routine flight for the crew. But the passengers were not aware that the plane they were traveling in was suffering from a years-old weakness. A horrific issue that neither the pilots nor the flight engineer knew about. Due to the busy schedule, this was going to be the 6th flight of this special Boeing 747 today. Talking about the 3 cockpit crew, 49-year-old Captain Masami Takahama will lead the flight, who had a total experience of 12,000 hours. The first officer was 39-year-old Yutaka Sasaki. The process of his promotion to captain was already underway, and this flight was the most important for his promotion. He had a total experience of 3,900 hours. The third cockpit crew included 46-year-old flight engineer Hiroshi Fukuda, whose job was to sit behind the pilot seats and keep an eye on the technical issues of the plane. Seeing the capability of the cockpit crew, it would not be wrong to say that the lives of 509 passengers are in safe hands. But like the crew, is this plane also capable of this or not? This will be known in a short while. At 6:04 in the evening, the doors of Japan Air 123 were closed and the pilot started taxiing the plane to runway 15L. This was going to be a very short flight from Tokyo to Osaka. Just 1 hour and 12 minutes. That is, by the time the plane reaches its cruising altitude of 24,000 feet, preparations for landing it will be started at that time. The weather was absolutely clear in Tokyo. But today many thunderstorms were emerging in Japan, due to which the pilot was instructed that he would not go directly from Tokyo to Osaka but would go over the ocean. Now Japan Air 123 was completely ready for takeoff on runway 15L. At 6:12, after getting permission from the control tower, the pilot raised the thrust levers of the plane and took off successfully. Till then whatever happened was absolutely normal. But exactly 12 minutes after takeoff, a loud sound is heard inside the plane over Sagami Bay, and at the same time a hole is created in the tail section. The passengers who were very excited about going home till now, their excitement turns into fear in a blink of an eye. Because due to the hole, there is a commotion in the cabin and the loose things start getting pulled towards the hole. All this happened so fast that it was difficult to even get an idea as to what has happened. This sound was so loud that it was heard in the cockpit also. This sound was felt like this in the cockpit voice recorder. It is important to know here that as the plane goes to attitude, the air outside starts getting thinner and the oxygen level also decreases. To counter this, artificial pressure is filled inside the cabin, which is almost equal to the atmospheric pressure of the ground. Which means that at 24,000 feet the pressure outside is less and the pressure inside the cabin is more. And this high air pressure is constantly exerting pressure on the walls of the cabin from inside. The cabin of the plane is kept completely airtight so that this artificial pressure does not leak in any way. But if even a small part of the cabin is weak, then the air pressure can tear that place and create a hole, due to which the artificial pressure of the cabin will end and the health of the passengers can deteriorate. Apart from this, due to low oxygen level, there may be difficulty in breathing. Something similar had happened in Japan Air 123 as well. But till now both the pilots are not aware of this. They were heard talking to each other in the cockpit voice recorder, in which sometimes they talked about the landing gear door being broken and sometimes they thought that maybe this sound came from the engine. But the reality was that the rearmost part of the fuselage had separated from the plane and it also took away the rudder. Due to the fuselage's tail being torn, now the pressure in the cabin will not be maintained. But the separation of the rudder, which is the part attached to the tail, means that the plane is now going out of the control of both the pilots. The job of the rudder is to control the yaw movement of the plane. When any plane takes a turn, this movement is called roll movement. The movement of nose up or nose down is called pitch. Whereas the direction of the nose horizontally going left or right is called yaw movement. In simple words, Japan Air 123 would not be able to turn properly at around 24,000 feet due to the absence of a rudder, nor would it be able to align itself with the runway while landing. But what is even more dangerous is that both the pilots had no idea that the rudder was gone. The plane was no longer stable like before and it started swinging left and right on its own. It was beyond the autopilot's capability to control it. A person on the ground below felt something was wrong after seeing the movement of the plane and took a photo. In this photo, it is clearly visible that a part of the rudder is missing from the tail. Before both the pilots could understand anything, the cabin crew was heard making an announcement instructing the passengers to fasten their seatbelts. On the other hand, the captain present in the cockpit felt something was wrong. So first of all he put the frequency of the transformer on 703, which is a universal distress signal. This means that now all the control towers will know that Japan Air 123 is in an emergency situation. The captain decided to land the plane back in Tokyo. But is the plane capable of doing this or not? First of all, he informed the control tower about the emergency situation and asked for permission to land back in Tokyo. The control tower gave the captain permission to take a 90 degrees turn and land in Tokyo. The first officer who was sitting on the controls turned the plane towards the right at an angle of exactly 40 degrees. But both the pilots became more terrified to see that the angle of the plane was much more than 40 degrees. At this time, the captain was heard shouting and telling the first officer to reduce the bank angle. But the angle did not reduce under any circumstances. The pilot tried again and again, but the plane was not responding to any of his inputs. Meanwhile, the flight engineer told both the pilots that the hydraulic pressure was decreasing rapidly and within no time the hydraulic pressure came down to zero. This was the point when the three crew members in the cockpit realized that the plane was now out of their control. For those who don't know, let us tell them that all the controls of the plane, including ailerons for left-right turn, elevators for pitch, flaps for reducing speed, etc., are impossible to move by hand during flight, especially when a 1,000 km/h wind is blowing from the front. That is why they are moved with the help of hydraulic pressure. And the tail of Japan Air 123, which broke, had also torn some hydraulic pipes. This was the reason that the entire hydraulic pressure of the plane was lost and the cockpit controls were left like a showpiece. At an altitude of 24,000 feet, Japan Air 123 had become a victim of many problems. The cabin pressure had ended. Oxygen masks came out. Due to the loss of hydraulic pressure, its controls had become useless. And the most dangerous thing is that now the passengers and pilots started getting hypoxia due to low pressure. Hypoxia is the condition when confusion occurs due to low oxygen level in the body. It becomes difficult to take decisions. Movements become slow and even a person becomes unconscious. Meanwhile, the cabin crew was heard making an announcement to wear oxygen masks. Whatever happened on August, now Japan Air 123 was scaring the passengers by doing severe roll movement. Now both the pilots had the controls of only one thing left, and that was the engine controls. The captain tried to get the plane out of the roll movement by using only the engine controls. If the plane has to be turned right, then the power of the left side engines will have to be increased, and if it has to be turned left, then the power of the right side engines will have to be increased. Similarly, in roll movement, when the plane banks towards the right, then it can be straightened again by increasing the power of only the right engines for a specific time. Using this method, the pilots controlled the roll movement of the plane to a great extent. Now their only mission was to land the plane back at Tokyo Airport as soon as possible. But before that, the plane had to be brought closer to the ground so that the pressure in the cabin could increase. For this purpose, elevators are used, which were now useless due to lack of hydraulic pressure. So the captain gave the idea of lowering the landing gear. The landing gear creates extra drag in the plane, which can reduce the speed. But this landing gear also opens with hydraulic pressure. So the captain decided to open the landing gear on its own weight, and luckily it opened. Now at 6:45, Japan Air 123 makes a round over the city named Atsuki, and its altitude drops from 24,000 feet to 13,500 feet, which was a great success for the pilots. Both the pressure and oxygen in the cabin improved. But the danger is not over yet. They had to take a right turn from here and go towards Tokyo. But turning the plane with only the engine controls was creating a lot of difficulty for the pilots. If they increased the thrust of the engine, the nose of the plane would go up a lot, which was also reducing the speed, and if the speed decreased too much, the plane could collapse on the ground. Unwillingly, the plane now entered the mountainous region of Japan. Turning the plane towards Tokyo without controls at a low altitude seemed an impossible task. At 6:48 p.m., the captain was heard telling the first officer to take a right turn as there were mountains ahead. But perhaps it was not possible to take such a subtle turn with the help of only the engine controls. At this time, various types of alarms were also heard ringing in the cockpit. Despite not wanting to, the plane had reached just 6,800 feet above the mountain range, far away from Tokyo. A few minutes later, at 6:54 p.m., the captain's frustration was clearly visible in his voice. And then finally, after 2 minutes, some such sounds were recorded in the cockpit. Japan Air's Taya collided with a mountain due to low altitude while turning. Only 4 people survived in this accident, who were sitting on the left side in the center of the cabin. The lives of the rest of the crew and passengers were lost in this horrific accident. Investigation revealed that 7 years ago, the tail of this plane collided with the runway while landing. After that, the plane remained grounded for several weeks for repairs, and Boeing technicians kept on repairing it. Investigation revealed that the technicians had installed the tail's splice plate incorrectly. Investigators calculated and told that this faulty repair can pressurize the cabin only for 11,000 cycles. Whereas Japan Air 123 had completed 12,500 cycles in the same conditions and coincidentally could not bear the pressure on this day. After this accident, the investigators made 4 different pilots go through the same conditions in a flight simulator. But all 4 pilots crashed the plane. And none of the pilots could keep the plane in the air for as long as Japan Air 123 was in the air. This is quite surprising because the pilots sitting in the simulator had 2 big advantages. Firstly, they knew in advance what the issue was, and secondly, they had the peace of mind that they would not lose their lives. Looking at these conditions, it would not be wrong to say that both the pilots of Japan Air 123 tried very hard to control the plane till the last breath and kept it in the air for 45 minutes.